Good afternoon. I'm Alberto Giordanelli from Victoria Productions, and I'm here to give you an update on the current state of development of the iPad-friendly version of Our Virginia, a book originally published by Five Ponds Press that's being prepared for the Virginia Department of Education for a pilot program to be released in the fall of 2010. As you know, we are using the same platform that Adobe has been working on for that has already been used for things like the Wired magazine digital version. And all of the content is here, but it's enriched with several layers of additional content. And it's all set up to look great on the iPad, both in landscape and portrait mode. Right now I'm just going to show this in landscape, and I'll just very briefly show portrait at the very end of this. So you can see the whole table of contents, and things are arranged in an interesting way. You have verticals, which correspond to articles in a magazine, but in this case they basically correspond to different topics and different dates. For instance, here we have Farewell to England, which goes oops, there, I'm having a little bit of trouble having it stop here. Here we go, which goes from 1570 to 1600. And then we have other sections, for instance, here off to, or the starving time, where we are going 1607 to 1618. So each one of these is corresponding to a period in history. And of course there are some like the timeline at the very end that cuts across. When we look at those spreads, we come up with content that's very easy to read, with something that takes advantage of all the great graphics on the original, but that also adds interactivity to it, so that we can do things like jump from the table of contents to the actual content and things of that sort. We've also enriched the content with video. For instance, here when we're looking at Farewell to England, we can actually go and see a video that talks about the trip from England to the New World. That video can be viewed both in this large format, and you can actually scroll through it using the controls that you're used to finding on the iPad, or you can actually play it at this very small size within this small screen. So the idea is to have video available for kids to be able to scroll through to hear as they are looking at the content of the interactive book. Besides video, we've also added details like vocabulary words that are key vocabulary words, so that when you click on them, you get a definition that's actually very appropriate for children, and that comes from the glossary that was put together with the original book. And there are plenty of slideshows where you can just click through different images to be able to see much more content than you'd be able to see on the original book. Some of the original content, like maps that have lots of intriguing detail, have been set up so that you can actually pinch to zoom and take a closer look at how they are put together, and just be able to see the whole and its parts in a very fluid way. Let me see what else we have here. This is again vocabulary words that you can click through. Another interesting element that we put into this is an interactive map. So for instance, in this case, we are looking at the growth of the Jamestown colony over the years. So what a student can do is they can actually drag their finger across the screen, and as they drag the finger, they get to see the different settlements that were built at different times to see how Jamestown grew over time. And they can, of course, just by dragging back, review, go back forward in time. And an interesting aspect of this that's usually lost when you look at a static map is that here you can see how, for instance, here in 1611, the first additional settlement was done, Henricus. But then for several years here, nothing happened. So when you can see the timeline being built, you actually get a better feeling for the sequence of events over time, and for how, for instance, in this case, quite a lot of the growth really happened towards the 1617, 1618 period. So that, I think, is going to be a good feature that's going to make the dates much clearer for students. In the same vein, we've created this rather interesting interactive timeline where you can actually go year by year looking at what was going on in the Jamestown colony. So 1606, 1607, and just by tapping on the year, you actually call up additional information about the events during that year with additional images. And in some cases, you can also see content from other parts of the book, or be called into other pages in the book. So you can actually navigate through the book just by clicking on the date, looking at the information of what's happening there, and then clicking on the little thumbnail version of the page. All of this, of course, also works in the landscape, in the portrait form of the book. So if you look at this in the portrait form, you actually get perhaps a little bit of a smoother format for this specific timeline. And when you look at the different dates again, you get detailed information about what happened on that particular date. And you also get a synchronized version of the map we had just seen right here on top, so you can actually see the map changing as you change dates. So this gives you an idea of how it's coming together. There's still a few things to be made to make it into this chapter 3, and chapter 4 is well on its way. We are also making a Spanish version of the book, as well as a one that has a lower reading level. I believe that within the next 10 to 15 days we will have a finished product that I think will be a good way to highlight a lot of the capabilities of the iPad platform, and it'll be very interesting to see how it's received by students in schools across Virginia. Well, thank you very much. This is Alberto Giordanelli, and we will update you soon.